Welcome to the second part of our interview with Marlene Mallia, longtime resident of Addison Township. Pleased to have you on the show. President of the Lakeville Cemetery Auxiliary for quite a few years. She's a retired LPN, and she's involved with she was involved with the Addison Township Fire Department. Actually was a captain on that for 25 years. And she was also a member of the Addison Election Board for 20 years. So thanks again for being on our program. We were dealing with your experience in nursing school down at St. Joseph Hospital and some of your experiences there. The School of Nursing, I believe, was run by the Sisters of Mercy down there. And that's where when you met your husband, Gene, as well. Gene Mallia is also a longtime resident of our area. In fact, we interviewed Gene on our program not too long ago. But why don't you fill us in on the details of that?
Well, it was Sisters of Mercy, remember? And we were allowed to go out during the week with someone else, not by ourselves.
Chaperone.
Chaperone. We had to be in at 10 o'clock, but one night a week we could be out until 11. So a very good friend of mine come rushing down. I'm all ready for bed. I'd had my bath, had my hair all done up in pin curls. They called me Slush because the sister who was the head of St. Joe's Mercy Hospital said, "I'm never going to remember how to pronounce your name. Can I call you Slush?" I said, "I guess you can. I mean, what am I going to do?" So, okay, she said, "Slush, I need you to go out with me." I said, "I can't go out. Look at me." She said, "Put some clothes on. We got to go out." Her friend, Curly, had come up.
Slush and Curly.
Yeah, and had dropped in and wanted them to go out for an hour or so, and she couldn't go out alone, so I had to go with her. Okay, I threw out a pair of jeans, wrapped a scarf around my head like we did then, and went out. And when we got out there, here was this other young man named Gino. Well, I did not like him too much, and I got in the back seat of that car and slid over to one side. He thought I was about the ugliest thing he had met since he come home from the service, and he hadn't been home very long. So that lasted an hour. We went down to Ted's on Woodward Avenue, had a cup of coffee or whatever, and back to the nursing home. Well, once we got back there and we were in the nursing home, I could go back upstairs to bed. She could stay downstairs till 11. So that was my meeting of Gene Mallia. A while later, quite a long time later, probably a couple of months, we all went out together and we went to a place, I cannot remember the name of it, but we went, it was a big ski resort, and it was wonderful. They had a big fireplace, and they let us cook our own hamburgers and hot dogs in the fireplace and marshmallows and whatever. Well, I dressed up a little bit that night. So Gene, I guess, asked someone who I was, and they said, "Oh, you know her. That's Slush." No, it can't be Slush. Well, it is. Well, he made arrangements for everyone to go home but me. So I was left there. I went in to go to the bathroom. When I come out, there was just me and him. I said, "I'm not going anywhere with you." He said, "Well, then you're going to walk because I'm your only ride back to Pontiac." That's how we met. He actually pursued me, which was wonderful. He sent me flowers from a florist that he knew. Of course, I knew they were 2 or 3 days old, but I didn't care. Nobody had ever brought me flowers in my life. And he actually pursued me, which was quite wonderful. Because in the village of Leonard, you kind of picked out who you was going to go out with, who you were going to marry. This was a person that I had never met before pursuing me to go out with him. And so we did, and we fell in love.
How long did you date before you got married?
Not very long.
Really?
We probably dated altogether about 14 months, because I was still in school.
Sure.
He was looking for a job, and we fell in love. And being with his family was a whole new experience. I didn't know anything about Italians. I'd never met any before, but I liked it. And his mother had 2 sons, and now here comes along this young woman with bright red hair. It was bright red then.
What impressed you most about them?
About them, oh, they were so loving and so caring. They just, I think some of it rubbed off on me. I do love the beauty of having a family that I can relate to. I love my family very much. They're very important to me. And they did that. But they were also very clannish. It's the way they were. They, you know, they come over here from Italy and they had to make their own way and make their own families were very important to them.
Right.
We didn't talk about things like pregnancy or that kind of thing. That was a no-no. I mean, that was, we just didn't talk about it. Whereas in my family, everybody knew when you were pregnant, you know? Yeah, it was different, but it was wonderful.
Now, did you specialize in a particular area of nursing, or, I mean, like when you graduated as an LPN, did you work on a specific floor in the hospital every time? How did that go?
Pediatrics was the thing I loved the most.
Children.
And then I worked in the nursery. For when I got married, I was working in the nursery. But pediatrics was really my favorite place to work. And when I ended up at Elmont Hospital, they had this little OBGYN unit, and that's when I became interested in women having babies, you know, and I loved that. I also loved that. However, Elmont was one of those little small hospitals that was losing people, and so I ended up in the emergency room. They thought I'd be great down there because I worked on that ambulance service.
What made you decide to go to the hospital in Elmont?
Because it was close. It was only 9 miles away,
It was closer than Pontiac.
and it was brand new. Yeah.
How long had you been at Pontiac before you made that move?
I'd say about 14 years.
A long time.
A long time. Yeah. Well, I left Elmont also when Crittenton opened. Oh my goodness. I had worked at Crittenton downtown. I thought I knew everything there was to know. I didn't know anything. Crittenton and Rochester opened in 1967, and I went there when it opened. And I worked in OB delivery. And then they needed people to go to pediatrics because no one wanted to work in peds. To open the unit, so I went there. I worked in pediatrics. Yeah.
So, did you have a family at this point?
Oh, sure. I had 2 children.
And were you working full-time?
Yes.
Wow.
Yep.
So that was another challenge, eh?
Yes, it was.
At what point in all this did the Addison Township Fire Department come into your life?
Well, my children were old enough to really take care of themselves. They were both living at home, but they were old enough to look after
So you had 2
themselves.
children?
2 children, boy and a girl.
Okay.
And they grew up with that fire department. Their grandpa was on it, but then grandpa died. And their dad was on it.
Right.
Their uncles were all on it. And
Yeah.
their mom was on it.
Okay. We want to talk more about your experience with the fire department. We need to take a break right now.
Okay.
But don't go away. We'll be right back.
Don't miss what's going on in your local government meetings. Watch Elgin Nichols and Dave Kinney on Minutes by Minute. Airs Monday through Friday, 7 a.m., 11:30 a.m., and 11:30 p.m., where they add a touch of humor to local politics.
Back with Marlene Mallia. I've been mispronouncing your name all this time, and I apologize for
It's
that.
easy to mispronounce it.
Mallia.
Yeah.
What was your maiden name?
Schlussler.
Hence, Slushy.
Schlussler. Yes.
That's where your nickname in nursing school came
Slush.
from. Yeah.
Yep.
We were just talking about your getting involved in the Addison Township Fire Department.
Yes.
Do you remember how old you were when you first got involved with the fire department?
No, I was young.
You were a young mother, right?
Oh yeah, I was a mother. My Diane was probably 10, so I was probably 30.
Okay. And this is a volunteer fire department,
Absolutely.
right? Okay. So who talked you into that?
The fire department?
Yeah.
My brother-in-law.
And you have a family history in the fire department.
I do. My dad was a fireman. One of my brothers was a fireman. If you lived in Leonard, you were on the fire department. It's just the way it was. Yeah.
And your qualifications as an LPN had something to do with that, right?
Yes, and for a long, long time, I didn't get paid anything. The fellas got a check at Christmas time. But I didn't get paid anything because I wanted it that way, because they didn't know how to insure me with my nursing license. Took them a couple of years to get that straightened out. Then I finally got paid. We got paid once a year. And I think we got like $2 an hour or something like that.
What was the reason you wanted to become involved with the fire
With
department?
the fire department? Because they needed me. I always liked to do things where I was needed for some reason.
And because of your medical background, you were
They thought I would be an asset, and I think
in
I
the
was.
EMT.
Yes. We were always going to school. When you're on the fire department, you're always going to school. That's probably one of the reasons why they have difficulty getting persons to join a department. It's because you're always going to school. But that's okay.
Did you have to go through some special training in order to become qualified?
Yes. First have to start out with just the basics, basic first aid, CPR. And then you have to go on and be basic EMT, which takes, well, depending on how you're able to go, but it takes a year. And then if you go on to be into the advanced EMT, that takes longer. That takes at least 2 years, if not longer.
Now, this was a whole different ball game from what you were used to in the hospital. You were involved with
Absolutely.
birthing babies in the hospital, and now all of a sudden you're going on accident runs.
That's right. But we still delivered babies.
Yeah.
Yeah, we did.
As a fireman, you mean?
Yes.
No kidding.
Yep. My name is on the birth certificate of far too many that I would like to tell you, because I've always worried, oh Lord, please let them be okay, because if something happened, my name was on that birth certificate. But nothing ever did. We had babies on bathroom floors. We had babies, well, the optimum would be if mom was home in bed, but that didn't happen very often. But because usually mom, when she was going to have that baby, she had it pretty quick. So we had him in the back of the ambulance. Yeah.
What was one of your the most vivid memories you have of a run as an EMT?
Oh. Probably the worst one was in the beginning, when my son's best friend, there was a horrible accident just south of Leonard. And that young man was dead when we got there. And he was my daughter's best friend. They had just been at my family room table doing homework.
This was an automobile accident?
And he died. The fellow that was with him, he never did things quite right after that. And he ended up dying in a motorcycle accident around 32 Mile Road. But he was never the boy that I knew before that happened. That was probably one of my most vivid and probably one of the worst times that I've had. Yeah.
What was one of the happiest runs that you
Oh, it
went
was
on?
always the babies, especially if they were okay. Yeah, it was. When moms were going to have babies, that was happy. Those were happy times, you know?
Did you have any trouble going from fire department to hospital and back again?
No, I did not. The two just blended themselves right in. Yeah. And they were very tolerant of me at Little Elmont Hospital, because I'd say, call the hospital. They'd call Elmont and say, Marlene's on a run. She'll be there as soon as she can. Yeah.
they were appreciative of people like you who were out there doing that job,
I
I'm
guess
sure.
so. We also had an accident on the train tracks in Leonard where a lovely young woman was hurt very badly, and I don't want to go into that because that lady is still my friend. And that was tough because her husband was on the fire department. It was a horrible train accident. She was in a small car and the train hit her. I don't even like to think about it anymore because that was one of those times when we had to go to court and testify.
But she's okay. She was
She's
okay. That's the main thing.
Yep, she still lives just outside of Leonard.
I guess when you're on a volunteer fire department in a small community like that, that's always a worry, isn't it? That the next run you go on could be for someone you know.
Yes.
Or a relative,
Yes.
for that matter.
Yes. And we had a lot of my friends who chose to die at home in hospice care, been with them when they said goodbye to this world. That was hard.
It's a unique position to be in, isn't it?
Yeah. But it goes with the territory.
Yeah.
And I don't care what anyone says, you have to learn to separate it all. No, you can't and you don't. You just don't. My daughter was going to go in nursing. We had her all signed up for her to go. And she worked as a volunteer at Crittenton. And she left me a note one night when I come home, was on the kitchen table, Mama, I don't want to go into nursing, I can't do it. And that was after her grandpa had died. But she was with older people in the hospital that died, and she'd get attached to them as a volunteer. So I guess it passed down, this love of people and this closeness.
What made you decide to switch to Crittenton?
Oh, because it was new. You always wanted, this brand new hospital with brand new equipment, and I got paid a whole lot more money. Yeah, that's what made me change. But eventually I went back to Elmont Hospital.
Oh, you did go back. How long were you in Crittenton?
6 years.
Okay, and were you in the, what department were you in at Crittenton?
Pediatrics.
You were still in pediatrics?
Yes.
Okay, we need to take a break right now, but we will
Okay.
be back with Marlene Mallia in just a moment. Back with Marlene Mallia on My Life. Marlene, you were talking about your experience at Crittenton Hospital as an LPN, about the new facility, better pay, etc., etc. But still, after a few years, you went back to Elmont, didn't you?
I did.
What made you decide to do that?
We were getting ready to go to Italy for the very first time, and we were going to be gone for 5 weeks. You don't spend that much money, at least we don't, and just go for a week or two.
This was probably right after your husband Gino retired, right?
Yes.
Okay.
And so I went down and I had 2 weeks vacation coming, and I asked her if I could have 2 weeks without pay, and she refused me. I said, I'm sorry. I was really surprised, actually. She said, no, I can't let you have that. Well, I got angry. I have a little temper, and I said, I'm one of your best employees. I've never not come to work, no matter what. Snowstorm, cyclone, whatever. I've never not come to work. And this really makes me angry. So with that, if you're asking me for my resignation, I'm going to give it to you. And she was surprised that I would do that, but I did. It was more important for me. We had saved for a long time to go to Italy with my husband and meet his family than it was to work at Crittenton Hospital. Probably because I knew I could get a job almost anywhere. And I did.
You had 2 children,
Two
correct?
children.
Did either of them think about going into the nursing profession?
Yes, Diane did.
Okay.
But she gave it up right before she graduated from high school.
What dissuaded her from that?
Because her grandfather died, number one. She was very close to him. And she had close patients. She became really involved with her patients. And they were dying. And she said, Mama, I don't understand why people have to die so young. I guess we had never had that conversation. So I said, okay, Di, whatever you want to do, we'll work it out. And her counselor sat down and found out that she loved children. And so her degree is in child care.
So what does she do now?
She stays home with her. She had 2 children, and she babysits her grandchildren and loves it.
Great.
Yep.
So
And
you're a great-grandmother.
I am a great-grandmother.
How many great-grandchildren do you have?
4.
4. As you think back on your nursing career, what was the worst experience? We've already talked about fire department, but in your hospital nursing career, what was the absolute worst experience you had?
The polio epidemic was absolutely the worst time in my nursing career. It was awful. It really was.
That affected young and old alike, didn't it?
It did, yep. Babies, older people. We had one doctor in our hospital that got polio. I did learn good nursing critique, though, I'm telling you. I never had to worry about passing anything along because I learned to use good technique. My hands, I've never had nice hands. They've always been scrubbed for so long. We scrubbed our hands. And we took good care of those patients. But boy, oh boy, I went home every day exhausted.
Would you say that that polio epidemic, if you want to call it that, came along right after the tuberculosis situation?
Oh yes, long after that.
Yeah.
Yep, it did. And we had nothing in the beginning. They developed the vaccine finally, and the first persons to get it were medical personnel and new mothers. So I was fortunate. I was pregnant at the time. I worked during this time, and I was pregnant. And it was awful. It really was awful.
Okay. What was the absolute best experience you ever had in the hospital?
Oh, seeing my first baby born. I'd never done that before. And I went back outside by the nursery and cried and cried and cried. And the nurse that was in that room with me had grown up in Leonard. And she come and she found me in a heap of tears. I said, that was awful. Why do women have to do that, to have a baby? She said, because, honey, that's just the way it is. It was beautiful yet horrible to me.
Did it get a little easier after that? Yeah.
Yeah.
Was it neat, especially when it was someone's first child?
Oh my, yes, that was so exciting. Or twins, multiple births. I was at St. Joe's Hospital when the Quints were born. When the 5 children, the Quints are from the Oxford, and I was there when they were born. That was exciting. Yeah, 5 babies. Oh my gosh, imagine that. Imagine having 5 babies.
Okay, so you were telling us about when you left Crittenton, went back to Elmont, you wanted to take a break because you and Jean wanted to
Go to Italy.
go to Italy. So you got to meet the rest of the family.
I did.
Were you as impressed with them as you were with Jean's?
I was scared to death. I was skinny and I was a redhead and I was very pale skinned. And they were all dark skinned.
Didn't look very Italian.
No. They were all dark skinned, very loving, of course. They are a very loving family. But it scared me to death. I couldn't communicate because I didn't speak the language. And Jean was so tired from interpreting, not only for me, but my kids. But guess what? My kids were teenagers. They did just fine. They communicated a lot better than their mother did. And they found places in that little village of Legata that I never knew existed. At least they say they found it. I don't know.
So your kids were teenagers when they went there
They
the
were.
first time.
And we went to the Vatican. Can you imagine me, a little Protestant girl from Leonard, Michigan, going in that Vatican the very first time? It's wonderful.
So did anybody ever turn you into a Catholic?
No, they never did.
I hear about the nuns trying and the Vatican.
Nope, I never changed to Catholic, and Gene Mallia is now a Protestant. He's now a Methodist.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, we were married. I said to him, how can we marry, Gene? You're Catholic and I'm Protestant. He said, we'll work it out. We did. We were married in the Leonard United Methodist Church, and we worked it out.
One thing I have to ask you about, you and Jean both were working full-time.
Yes, we were.
And that was an era where you didn't see nearly as much of that as you do now.
No, you don't.
Was that a struggle raising a family during that time?
Yes, it was. It really was. We argued a lot. Probably, I think the Lord decided this. We always worked different shifts for the babysitting problem, you know?
Sure.
We always worked different shifts. I think that saved our marriage. I really do.
And that had to be a real challenge, especially when you had a baby, a new baby.
Yeah, I did. That was another thing I didn't know anything about, as you found out.
Yeah, they don't come with a set of instructions, do they?
I didn't know anything about babies. I couldn't cook. I couldn't even boil water when we got married. And I had to take that course in training because of the diabetics. That was all done by your food then was all done, you know. You didn't have, diabetics have it made now compared to what I knew about.
Yeah.
And our food, they had to measure that food. That's the only time I learned to cook.
Yeah. We're kind of coming to the end of our segment here, so I
Okay.
have to wrap things up. But I always like to ask my guests one final question. If you were able to do it over again, would you make any changes?
Not one single solitary thing.
Yeah.
Not one thing. I've had a wonderful life.
Yeah.
Not perfect, but wonderful.
Well, we're very pleased that you were willing to be on our program, so thanks for coming over to be with us, Marlene.
Thank you for having me.
You betcha. Marlene Mallia, thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time on My Life.
This is OCTV, Oxford Community Television, serving Oxford and Addison Townships with the best in local programming. On Charter Channel 191, AT&T UVerse Channel 99, and our website, OCCTV.org. OCTV, we provide local programming that brings you closer to home.
Canine Stray Rescue is Oxford's own local dog rescue. Each year they take in hundreds of dogs and bring them into suitable homes. A certified nonprofit organization, Canine Dog Rescue strives to give pound dogs a new leash on life. To donate, adopt, or even volunteer, call them at 248-628-0435 or go to their website, dogsaver.org, and click on the Canine Stray Rescue League